them uh, economic means of energy, whether it be through um, trade. They pit us a bit against each other for trade because you know wherever they can set up um, a trade agreement, they could really outbid us or outbid someone else just based on volume. And the fact that they could look at the and what well, let me say this. For example, the trade agreement that the US was about to enter in, had Hillary Clinton been voted into office. Now everybody's going to stop. We're talking about the trade agreement, not Hillary. Um, that agreement was a significant way of the U.S. and all of the Pacific Rim to box in China's influence. It was going to give countries around if a bit of a fair shake in the deal where China couldn't go in and just outbid out maneuver them, and it gave their products a way into a larger market. Made it a lot easier because we were all working together for that means. Well, when that fell apart because of all the influence that was placed on it during our elections, it split. It tore that agreement up, and China went about its merry way since then and has broadened its influence around the Pacific Rim. That influence has, they look now with the influence that they have. They've been building islands. They have, and they have become more belligerent toward Taiwan. Well, what this is doing is showing them that we can come together and we can defeat you if you decide you want to invade a smaller country. It was not something that they thought was possible because of their economic influence and the way they have basically kind of marginalized the US in some places. This war woke up a worldwide sleeping tiger, something that they cannot imagine have happened, but they don't want to find out. They're going to be a little bit more calculated because the economic sanctions will destroy their economy much more than say Russia's, which was Russia had it was an oligarchy, and so their people are not as connected as the Chinese population would be. The Chinese population is more connected to the outside world than Russia's is in a lot of respects. So there you go. This war
Yep,
marginalized that.
and China is more connected to the global economy by design. You're completely right, Daryl. Uh, Russia tried to connect themselves to the global economy. They did not have a lot to offer except gas to Europe. That's been cut off. Regardless what people think about Germany, Germany did succeed in a relatively few months uh, in replacing every single cubic meter or cubic whatever it would be of gas delivered from Russia. Germany replaced that with another source. But you're right. Global economic sanctions put on China would be devastating. It is a huge economy. Uh, it wouldn't be easy to levy such sanctions, but if successful, it would cause huge unrest inside China. because Chinese workers do benefit from the economy that China has built. So that was reason number 9 to lift the threat of major war in Asia. Uh, since Russia's terrible performance in invading Ukraine, people have thought twice. Russia thought it was completely free to act. This encouraged China to believe it was also completely free to act and to invade Taiwan if that's what they wanted to do, or to expand their sphere of influence in the Pacific. Uh, when Ukraine defeats Russia, it will be clear that such powers in the world as Russia and China are not at all free to act. There will be a global alliance amassed against them. So, uh, we're going to move through the rest of the reasons that Timothy Snyder posted why Ukraine must defeat Russia. I hope that we get some more hands up and that folks retweet this space before we go to reason number 10. Asra, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I just wanted to go back to the question about whether cars produced in Ukraine, and I'll make it quick. They have had an automobile industry since the 1950s. In the beginning, through around 2008, it was mostly domestic production, and then the Chinese and the South Koreans and the Swiss and so on got involved. So it also began to include international production, made in Ukraine, but they were kits from outside. In 2018, with the war having actually, started and going on in some regions, some of the plants that were in the later occupied regions could no longer function. So there was a report recently that around 2018, the industry was only about 2 to 5% of what it had been. Hopefully, after Ukraine wins, they will be able to ramp that up. According to what I had read, especially in the non-automobile area, so trucks and even armored vehicles and so on, they have excellent quality. So you never know. But I thought I'd say that since people were asking about whether or not there were cars being produced in Ukraine.
Thanks for jumping in, Asra. I appreciate that. I do know that Ukraine manufactures tractors, and we have seen those tractors being used on the battlefield to tow away uh, immobilized Russian tanks. So if they can manufacture tractors that can do that, they can do anything. Uh, so hopefully the automobile industry rebounds in Ukraine after this war. But thanks. So, Daryl, we're going to move on to some more reasons of why Ukraine must defeat Russia. We just got through reason number 9. Reason number 10 could bring some interest here. So, retweet and share the space. Raise your hands if you want to join the conversation. Number 10, to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. And this is significant. Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons. Russia, a nuclear power, then invaded. If Ukraine loses, countries that can build nuclear weapons will feel that they need to do so to protect themselves. So, just to make that clear, when the Soviet Union collapsed, there was an agreement that Ukraine would give up all the nuclear weapons warehoused on its territory. Those nuclear weapons actually went back to Russia, along with the ballistic missiles that would have delivered the nuclear warheads. What's ironic here is that some of those ballistic missiles have actually been used by Russia, obviously not to deliver a nuclear warhead. That has not been done. This is something Russia will never do. but they have launched those missiles with concrete noses, concrete warheads, so to speak. And those missiles have destroyed a lot of things in Ukraine by kinetic energy, simply by the energy of a gigantic missile with a concrete nose plunging earthward from thousands of feet high. So reason number 11, reduce the risk of nuclear war. It's a big deal because there's still a nuclear threat around the globe. Daryl?
This is one that I'm going to say it reaches a little bit on the assumption that Russia will, at the end of this, Russia will um, reduce somehow, or um, the threat of the war will subside afterwards. And I'm going to take issue with it only because at this point, Russia has its nukes. If and when all of its conventional arms are destroyed, taken away, lit back home, they will have nothing really substantial. And this is one of those things where these other countries have been a little timid on their idea of, okay, do they have enough land back? Can we start the peace process? Blah blah blah. And it's because they are afraid of what a Russia after this war will be. They will have nukes, but they won't have anything substantial in the way of an army to protect themselves, or they may devolve into a um, uh, of states of rebel states, whatever. And that's the reason why I see it more dangerous in some aspects. But at the same time, if Russia understands that it is falling apart and it's responsible, then maybe, just maybe, the outside chance is there for the nuclear arms to be removed from Russia and finally destroyed. In which case, the U.S. could reduce. I'm not going to say get rid of, because you have bad actors out there that still have them, but could reduce ours based on that. And I think that's what he's looking for, is that reduction, because in order for Russia to, you know, find their way back to a normal economic transactional situation with the rest of the world, they will need to do something such as that.
And I think that is a legitimate hope that if Ukraine, not if, but when Ukraine wins this war, the nuclear threat could be reduced globally. But I agree with you, Daryl. It is a bit of a reach. It is just a bit of a reach. You know, nuclear weapons have been reduced in the past. Reagan and Gorbachev reached agreement on how to reduce the numbers of nuclear warheads at then the Soviet Union and the United States. And every such reduction is a reason to hope. But I agree with you. It's a bit of a reach. So reason number 12.
Wait a minute.
To head on. Oh, go ahead. Go
You
ahead.
want to take Christoph's hand?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Christoph.
Thanks, gentlemen. I think what Timothy Snyder is alluding to here is that Russia, and certainly in the beginning days of the war, everybody was hesitant because they were like, everybody, and I want to say the Western world was, the comments were, well, Russia's just going to use the nuclear option, or Russia's a nuclear power, and we can't go up against Russia because they have the bomb, and so the theory and thought would go that if Russia were to win this in any way, shape, or form, that other smaller countries, ones that are developing the bomb, ones that kind of have the bomb, like North Korea, China, which is also doing its best to build up its nuclear arsenal, Iran, and others, even including perhaps Pakistan and India, would feel empowered or emboldened to be able to invade a smaller country and or a neighbor because they had nuclear weapons, and people would perceive that as, oh well, we got to let them go ahead and do that because we can't go up against them because they have nuclear weapons. So I think this is probably where Dr. Snyder was going with the proliferation aspect of this.
But that would assume in a empire building nation, and at this point, you don't have those type of actors around the world where they are building empires like Russia. For all it for
I'm not.
for all that it's for all that it's worth, Iran just wants to be able to uh, maintain their own society. They want, yes, they look to establish, their form of Islam around the world, which other countries don't want their Islam because it's not the way that they believe. Just as we have here in the States, we have varying differences on Christianity here in the States, and they want their sphere, but they aren't necessarily looking at land. And so there's a little bit of a difference in how countries are are raising their nuclear saber. India is not, them and Pakistan, it's one area in particular, and that's the um Kashmir Kashmir region, because of the food, the agriculture of that area. It's a rich area in a lot of things, and that's the reason why they fight over it. But are they going to go nuke on it? No. They're going to keep the other one from wanting to go too far because both of them have it. Not,
Right, but I think I know I don't disagree with you, Daryl. I think that what Dr. Snyder was angling at was what there was a large fear in the beginning of the war that Putin was, and it took a while that Putin was serious about, oh, I'm going to nuke the West, but it took a while for people to get disabused of that, and I don't think that I think that if it's a win on Russia's side with using that as the cudgel, that you would encourage other people around the globe, maybe not the ones that I listed, but others perhaps, to look into the fact that they could be able to browbeat others with the fact that they had a nuclear weapon.
yeah, but like again, again, I don't see the nations that are looking to get nukes using them in the same way. Um, yes, North Korea is just fast. They have the nuke and they are building the missiles, but to what end? Where are they going to go? Because even if they attempt to go to the southern tip of the isthmus, it's not going to end well for them. And the nuclear missiles that they're trying to build will never get them a beachhead on American soil. It is just a way of them extracting, we are here too. It's but the idea of expanding North Korea, do you really think they would? No. So to what end is their nuclear weapon except for a something to say, don't look past me. Hey, here.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah,
and
Kim
and
Jong Un
and
is
really, there's
he's
only those two in the world that are really itching, getting the itchy finger for nukes.
well, stranger things continue to happen. Anyway, you guys, I love this. I love this discussion. Please, let's keep going, and I will drop down to listening. Thanks so much.
No worries, Christoph. Thanks.
Thank you, Christoph. As brilliant a historian as Timothy Snyder is, and I've never taken one of his courses, but I am watching his lectures on YouTube about Ukraine. His list of 15 reasons is, in a way, a list too long, because it means that after his first few reasons, he's stretching to look for reasons that fit a kind of a kind of view of the world.
Pauline?
But we're going to keep going. Daryl, go ahead.
No, bloke, go for it.
Bloke, are you here? Go ahead.
Okay, I see Don down there.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Had some connection issues. During yesterday, I listened to that terrible Spaces with they invited Malcolm Nance on, and then it was all pro-Russia people on the other side. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, dear Lord! I mean, these people were splitting hairs so fine. It was the language of defeat right there. But what you're saying about nukes? Nukes are a strategic line in the sand. This is the weapon of last resort, right? You don't use it unless everything else has gone in the fire. Will Russia use it? No, because if you recall, a couple of months ago, Bloomberg did an article on their inventory and how badly kept it was. 87% were either unable to fly or the warheads themselves were badly off and unable to detonate.
But that still leaves 13%. And
yes, and they have more than.
And 13% is still
of 6,000 is still, almost 800 strategic level. Actually, we don't even know that, do we? They could be tactical, not strategic.
Well, here's the thing. Nukes are not strategic, especially by the nations that are trying to get them. They're not strategic, because when we use something strategically, it has a mind of that I have something else to use first, and this is just my gambit. For them, as in North Korea, it's a first strike. That's what they're going for. They want to be able to hit first. rather than it be something to just hold back and negotiate with. They are building offensive nukes. They are building it so that they can hit the U.S. at any time that they want. Not if the U.S. threatens them, but anytime that he wants, because he wants
This
to be
is
able
North
to
Korea.
So if
he
I
wants
could,
to be able to influence our treatment and our influence in the area of South Korea.
Right.
That's his aim.
But he's only got what, 10?
Doesn't matter. One is enough.
Yeah.
When we
The
talk
old
nuke,
adage, I'm not
when
afraid
we
of.
talk nukes, it's not a matter of how many. It's the fact that one can do the job. One
Right.
killed
It's
millions. And so we can't
yeah.
think of them as in the way that the US and Russia seemingly used them to basically keep a balance. They are not using them for balance. They're using them as threats. And that's the difference when we're talking strategic. They're not strategic in that way.
Yeah,
No.
and if we can, Daryl and Don, Bloke wants to jump in here. Bloke, please go ahead.
yeah, I have a little bit of a quibble with that. So just a couple of things to point out. So the point that I think Timothy Snyder is making that is quite correct is that Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons. Uh, in return for security guarantees, right? And so the point is that if you don't want every single country to arm themselves with nuclear weapons, right, you have to prove that a country like Russia can be deterred with countries coming to their aid to guarantee their security, as was the Budapest Memorandum, as it stated, that their borders would be protected if they gave up their nuclear weapons, and that's sort of the point. And second thing, otherwise, many more countries will realize that they need nuclear weapons as a deterrent, right? And I'm, you know, the main reason a lot of these countries are going for nuclear weapons, like North Korea, is precisely that, right? Because it is they're trying to build a deterrent, right? Because they know that they can't. They will be defeated conventionally, and so if we want to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons, Ukraine must be victorious in this war. And that, I believe, was the thrust of his argument. Now, the other point I'd like to make is that there is really no limited use of nuclear weapons, right? So it's not quite true that that North Korea could strike us anytime they want, because they know it would be the end of their country. And the reason for that is because especially ballistic missiles, the amount of time for surveillance, identification,